Well, let's bring in Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, political analyst from the Nelson Mandela University, to unpack day one of the voter registration weekend underway in South Africa. Prof, Breakfast, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here at the SABC.
Thank you very much for having me.
At this point, just how important is it this weekend to the elections that we are set to hold next year?
Well, election is one of the hallmarks of a democracy. And also, election is a form of public participation. Also, election is a control measure of a democracy, because if people don't vote, in my opinion, it's like giving politicians a blank check to do as they please. But I think also when the public withdraws from politics and public affairs, things like corruption, they tend to flourish. But at the same time, I think we should not confine democracy to election. I think it's more than that. The challenge is that, Lizel, there is a connection, in my opinion, between a slow pace of service delivery and voter turnout. Because if the issue of service delivery is not addressed, I think people tend to feel discontent and not vote on a large scale. And listen, you cannot attribute that to the IEC. The problem is not civic education or lack of raising awareness. The problem is the lack of a responsiveness of politicians. That tends to discourage people. And I'm not encouraging people not to vote. I do encourage people to vote, but at the same time, I think politicians also have a responsibility to respond to the plight of the people.
No, absolutely, Dr. Breakfast. Thank you for those sentiments. Earlier on, we saw some stations were empty with a very low turnout. And you alluded to what this translates to. At this point, what role can leaders of political parties and formations do to motivate the electorate to come out to register to vote, from your vantage point?
Well, I think they need to raise awareness. Even though I'm not trying to be funny, one can argue that maybe the damage is done and what is done cannot be undone, because, people don't vote just for fun. Yeah. People vote because they want to see a change for the better. For instance, listen, if you look at the issue of unemployment, at the moment it is sitting at arguably 32%, and it is worse amongst young people. So a lot of young people feel like there's no need for them to vote because they're not getting anything out of this a democracy. So politicians have a responsibility when they are in power to respond to the needs of the locals in particular. Yeah.
Dr. Breakfast, you're speaking about the need, for people to partake, to register and inevitably to vote next year in the elections, just given the implications sociopolitically as well. We've seen that there are different avenues to register to vote. Not many people coming out to the registration stations in some areas, others not choosing to partake online. What dangers also emerge on that front, given that there are different options, but voter apathy continues?
Well, I think we need to move with the times. Society has evolved. So those who can register online, so be it. But others, I think they would want to register in person at different polling stations. Now, the challenge is that we have a divide between the haves and the have-nots. So I think people on a large scale, a part of the working class, might not have the facilities to register online. And also you need data to register online, so that it can become a class issue. But I don't think that we should do away with it. So I think we need a hybrid. system. Those who can register in person, they need to go to different polling stations, but those who can register online also must be sort of like encouraged to do so.
Are there concerns at this point about some of the disruptions occurring, at different voter registration stations? They're protesting about service delivery issues. What's also coming to the fore on that front?
I think those conflicts are caused by, and I'm not trying to be funny, but people who are clouding issues by confusing the role of the IEC and the responsibility of their leaders. If you have not been getting services, you cannot deny people the right of going to a register, because that is their right. But you need to direct your anger to your leaders. So I think we need to have discussions, in particular at local level, in terms of how should citizens hold their leaders accountable without denying others their right to register, participate in the elections.
Are you expecting a better turnout tomorrow, given that it is the final day to register?
Yes, I'm very much optimistic. I think so far so good. But I think also our leaders, I want to sort of like emphasize this. They have a responsibility to get the job done, promote development, and change the lives of the people for the better. I think that will go a long way in terms of encouraging people to vote. I think, we cannot blame the IEC for lack of awareness about the centrality of elections.
Prof, let me wrap up this conversation. I just want to quickly look at the relationship between socioeconomic conditions and voter turnout. What's been reflected on that front? Are there any concerns with amongst those with good living conditions or in the urban areas? Help us understand that perhaps from a more scientific point of view.
Look, democracy is also about the culture of human rights, but the concept of human rights, we need to break it down into three categories. So we've got, the first generation, the political rights, but you also have the second generation, the socio-economic rights. So I think when people cannot access water, education, health, they tend to be discouraged. But my argument is that regardless whether you vote, you don't vote, someone is going to vote for you, and you're going to end up having leaders that you never voted for. So it's no use not to vote. You have to vote. But I'm also at the same time, doing some research, looking at, for instance, which race amongst young people tend to vote on a large scale, which gender, and so on, because I think there's not much data available of late surrounding that. But maybe it's a conversation for another day.